Well, hi, everybody. My name is Bethany Jett. I'm one of the co-owners of Serious Writer. Super excited about today's podcast episode. And we have a special guest, very special to me because she's my mom. But Kate Alexander, who is a best-selling novelist of multiple genres, has published indie and traditional. So she's got experience in both camps. ECPA bestseller, actually, which is fantastic. And I think 40 books, they've not all released yet, but I think you've hit 40 novels.
40 works of fiction, but I've written 10 novels that haven't been released. We're waiting.
10 novels that are done, turned in, but have not yet come out.
Yes.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So my 30th, again, work of fiction, counting novellas and short stories and novels. My 30th just came out last week. Just could do a little plug. Three Dog Night, released by Guidepost. So it's a real fun mystery, fun to write, fun to research. I'm excited about it.
I can't believe you have 10 that are outstanding because
me either.
I'm antsy right now for my clients who are under contract, and like we can't even announce the book. We can't even do anything, and it's only been a few months, and yet you've got 10 that are in the wings. So I think today's conversation is going to be super good. So my mom is a novelist. I'm a nonfiction author, but have transitioned over into agenting. So a lot of my comments today are actually going to be coming from the agenting side of publishing, whereas you'll be coming from the author side. And that's how we sort of decided to divvy this up with our comments. So today's topic is it time to pivot? And we've got 3 best practices of what we consider to be very big umbrella best practices to help you. And the first one, and Mom, I'll let you start with this one, but I think the first one is being open to pivots, being open to things that are going on.
All right. So, oh, wow. Going back to like 2013, when my first novel came out through Tyndale, and it did hit the CBA bestseller list, which was so exciting. But, sales were not quite what they wanted. And, they asked me for different ideas for something else, and we never really settled on anything. And so I had that moment of, I've written one book and my career is over. And then later I wrote a couple other books, and, and then it was like, again, that moment, my career's over. But what I decided to do somewhere along the way was just say yes to opportunities. So, back when my debut novel came out, it was a historical, and we were told pretty much what we tell people now, and it is good advice: stick with a genre, whatever it is, stick with a genre. But my other idea was for a contemporary romance. Well, Revell picked that up. And so it was that pivot right there of, okay, I'm not going to be a historical novelist anymore. I'm going to be a contemporary romance novelist. And did that series of 3. Well, then an opportunity came up to write a novella for Barbour. So it's like pivoting back to historical again, because that's what that was going to be. And so it was always just like, and I'm not saying I said yes to everything that I was approached with, because there were people who would say, do you want to collaborate on a series with me? And I was very careful about those kinds of offers. But when someone said, hey, we're doing a novella proposal for Barbour, do you want to be part of it? And I knew this person very well. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I do want to be part of that. Well, that was a second novella that I got to do for Barbour, that they accepted that proposal idea, and we ran with it and got to write that story. So after that, it sort of became very serendipitous, except I know that God's hand was on me with all of this, because I was just trying to give up everything to him. I and not to be like super spiritual, because I'm not. I have lots of doubts, lots of trusting and not trusting and wanting to trust, but you know, we really do need to know that God is in charge of our journey, and it's up to us though to seek out those opportunities and to be available to them so that when they come along we can say yes. So I just happened to be talking to my agent one day. I don't remember why we were on the phone together, but it was another place where it's like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what to do. I'm not getting contracts now. I've, done the Ravel trip series. I've done a couple Barbara novellas, and she had just come back from vacation. So her inbox was overloaded with things. And she said, there's this publisher, Annie's Fiction. Have you ever thought about writing a cozy mystery? They need someone to write a cozy mystery. And I said, yes. I had never written a cozy mystery, but I like to read them. I said, yes, I'll do that. And so that has started me on a wonderful relationship. Now, those are work for hire, so they're not quite traditional, but what I can do is write them, I get paid for them, and, then move on to the next project. So I've written multiple books for Annie's. But then, so I wrote a couple books in that mystery series. And then that was it. Then I get a call. I'm at the Kroger parking lot, Kroger, a grocery store near Memphis, outside Memphis. And my agent calls. You want to write an Amish novel? Sure. I don't read Amish novels. I knew nothing about writing an Amish novel, but I said yes, because I knew I could research. I knew I could come up with a story. So I've written 2 Amish novels. And as much as I love doing them, I will tell you, they are very difficult to write, because when you're not of that culture and not surrounded by it, just lots of little questions come up about how they live their daily lives. So it was difficult, but we worked through it, and it was wonderful. So, I could go on with more and more examples, but I'll just say this though, too. Again, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know what God is orchestrating behind the scenes. One of the editors, actually for one of those Amish novels, moved from Annie's to Guideposts. And there again, I get a call out of the blue from my agent. Hey, this editor wants you to do a novella for Guideposts. In fact, 2 novellas for Guideposts. And once again, of course, I said yes. And so now I've written 2 novellas, which are really cool, because I wrote the historical novella, Dana Lynn wrote the contemporary novella, and those are packaged together in a series that they're doing. And then now I've written 2 cozy mysteries for them in a different series. So it's a little hard when it comes to marketing when you write in multiple genres, because it's like if you're not writing romantic suspense, you can't really have a romantic suspense website, or, if you're not writing like these happily ever after romances all the time, your website's not going to be like all flowers and roses, so it can be hard that way for the marketing when you're writing in multiple genres. But I truly know and truly believe that because I was willing to say yes, God honored that. And he's just taken me down this very meandering path to get me where I am today. And I didn't even talk about the indie, but you go ahead.
I think we're going to jump into indie on our second one.
Okay.
I said that the first best practice was being open to pivots, but that's sort of the topic of this. The first best practice, and you did cover it beautifully, because you were correct, is being open to different genres.
Yes.
Which you explained, especially as a novelist, and I thought you did a great job with that. I think a key thing for writers to understand is, in more than one of these instances, it sounds like an editor that you had worked with and done a good job for had moved, and then they pulled you in with them. And so one thing that I want writers to know, no matter what genre you're writing, that the easier you are to work with and the better you are at meeting deadlines. And
yes,
that matters so much, because there's a lot of bad behavior that happens on both sides of the book industry. But when you're someone who can be easy to work with and you get things done and you turn in clean copies, that matters. And that's how some of these opportunities are then presented later on.
Yeah, definitely.
I think being open to different genres is important. And from the agenting side, so it's something that I have conversations with my clients with a lot, even this week, where we've got projects that I think are absolutely amazing, but based on the feedback we're getting from editors and then feedback from other clients who are writing in a similar category, sometimes I have to say, listen, like with my client this week, I had to say, I can send this on to the next editor within the umbrella of houses. So basically what that means is, we'll use Penguin Random House as an example. You can't send to every single imprint underneath that umbrella at once. There's certain rules for that. And so it wasn't Penguin, it was a different big house though. And I said, listen, I can go to the next one, but based on the feedback we're getting, I'm wondering if it's time to pivot. Do we need to take this and make it into a nonfiction? Do we need to change the ending? Do we need to maybe create a different series with it for right now? Because if I send it on, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get the same feedback. We've been getting consistent feedback on this picture book. And then that shot is over. We cannot send this book back to them. And she said, these are great ideas. Yes. And then she's going to run with some different ideas. And so on the agenting side, I love that she's willing to even shift from like a fiction to a nonfiction within the picture book space, but also that she's willing to say, okay, maybe I need to come up with a different idea to kind of match what's going on in the market. So even if you're already sort of solidified in what you're writing, sometimes being able to pivot on your ideas is really important too. And it does make it easier for me as an agent when my clients are willing to do that, because if a client comes back and says, no, this is the project, fine, then I'm going to send it on to the houses, right, for you. But then if the project doesn't end up getting picked up, that project's done, it's over. And now we're having different conversations. So so being open to different genres is really important. And I think the last thing I'll say on this one, and then I'll follow up with you if you've got something else on the genre topic, is the easiest way to write in multiple genres is to write in genres that are adjacent to each other or sister genres, meaning that people who read cozy mysteries, for example, they probably also like thrillers of other categories. But because they're cozies, they probably also like sweet romance or some of the softer side. So cozy could go really two ways. It could go more in the thriller direction, or it could go into more of the sweet direction in other genres too. And that's kind of what you write with your contemporaries. They're sweeter versus like super spicy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And not just because of me, but because
Right.
also the publishers I work with. I mean, sometimes we get this idea when we haven't started writing yet that we're just going to write this story and everyone's going to fall in love with it and adore it and, be clamoring for it. And, seldom is that truly the case. The publishers know what their readers like, and especially with Annie's and Guideposts, they have a very particular audience, and there are things that you just can't do. Like, Guideposts do not want heroines to lie. That can be really tricky when you're writing a story about a heroine who's going undercover because she's a detective, but she's not allowed to lie especially not to the hero. So, but, those challenges actually just make you a better writer, because you really have to dig deep, like, how am I going to solve this? So what they did in that instance was she got to fool him for a little bit, but she had to quickly confess up so that she wasn't just lying. And I tend to be a little bit, and I'm not bloody or gory in the whole scheme of things on that spectrum, but like, I'm here and Guidepost is here. So they're kind of sometimes pulling me back, even when I think I've already pulled myself back a little bit, but no, they want it pulled back even a little bit more. So, you have to learn, your publisher is going to have certain ideas of what they want, and that's what you're going to have to follow to get multiple contracts from them. But you learn, and they're very gracious about it, and they know that you're just, you're becoming an author for them.
Yep. Well,
And I love writing for them. I love writing for Annie's too. So
I would have a hard time writing for them because I really love an unreliable narrator, and
I know.
so I like it when I don't know what's going on. And I will say, this is completely on the opposite spectrum of Guideposts, but don't think of the movie if you have seen it. But the book Gone Girl is so brilliant in the unreliable narrator I keep telling my mom, I'm like, you don't have to read the whole thing. Just read like the first 4 chapters, because the brilliance of the unreliable narrator is just so good. Like, you're questioning yourself.
Yeah.
It's just
Mm.
brilliant. So, all right. So
It
we're
really is. Well, just one more thing. I mean, two more things, I guess, really. It really is fun because, um, again, I'm not real gory, but in my debut novel, there's a guy that gets killed with a pitchfork. I mean, right in the stomach. So it's like, I could never have done that in a in a guidepost book. I'm kind of was surprised I got by with it, and with the publisher I had for that too. And I did have something else, but I think now it just kind of went. Oh, I know you were talking about adjacent genres, because there are genres I would not attempt to write. I am not going to write science fiction. I am not going to write fantasy. About the only fantasy books I've read are the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I absolutely adore, the Silmarillion. I love those, but I'm not into that. And those people, they know their stuff so well. And, you just have to really, you have to just be really deep into that to write a good fantasy story. I also probably will never write a Regency, because again, those people, those readers are so avid. They're such avid fans. They know if you make a mistake, they are going to know it. And so again, unless you really read a lot of Regency, that's one to be a little bit careful of. But I do write, romantic suspense, cozy mysteries, historicals, romance and not, and contemporary romances that, aren't suspense, but those all sort of go together. And I have found an audience for, people that love my books no matter what I write, because some readers read only one genre, but a lot of readers read multiple genres.
Mhm. And I think
Okay.
too, I think that's key with the adjacent, because even people who maybe who like really high or epic fantasy,
Mm,
a lot of them also then will tend to go over into the sci-fi
yeah.
area too. Sci-fi fantasy is often bundled together. You'll see that. So you just got to know your genre too. And this is a good segue into our second best practice. And it is correct. The first best practice was being open to different genres. The second best
See
practice is being open to different publishing opportunities.
that.
I'll kick this one off, and I'm going to send it to you. As an agent, especially with my picture book authors, one thing that I have to look at is so many of their stories are so brilliant, and they have so many ideas that they come to me with, which is why I don't know when I'll be open to picture books again, because they just continue to turn out amazing stories. But sometimes the question is, and as I'm developing my eye as an agent and listening to editors in the market, is this story going to be a good picture book, or should it be something else? And so for some projects, some of the pivoting that has to happen is, listen, maybe it's time to take some of these stories that are super good, but it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to get an agent or an editor to pounce on it or to say yes to it. Maybe this is a story that needs to get out there in a different way. And many of you who've taken Michelle Medlock Adams classes have heard her say this too, and it's so true, is that sometimes a story is better as a magazine article. And I highly recommend that if you're waiting for some projects, especially in the picture book market, to get published, because it's so difficult in such a competitive space, that maybe you should start getting some publication credits with some of these stories, because you're always going to have more ideas. And that is something I have really seen with these picture book authors, is that they can just turn them out, and then they have to start the fine-tuning process. So I know we're going to jump into traditional versus indie publishing with my mom here, but also consider, is this nonfiction devotional, should it be a book, or should it be something that you're doing on your website and sharing with an audience right away? Is it something that you could submit to an anthology? Is it something that maybe you could submit to an online website that has devotionals there? Like, maybe it's an article. I just think that sometimes we get so locked in to what we want the story to be and how we want that story to be published, that looking at the market, maybe that story needs to get out there in a different way, which can then boost you later for other stories to be able to have an opportunity to get a different book published, especially as a debut author, which is one of the hardest places to be, especially in the picture book space. Name recognition means so much. So, as a debut, it's hard for them to take a risk sometimes. So, but let's talk about traditional versus indie, Mom, because you've done both. You're muted though.
Sorry. Yeah, so it was about the time that I was writing, I think what was my third novella for Barber. And I didn't have any contracts. Like I just finished my Amish novel for Annie's, and they had not yet offered anything more. But they are going to. I mean, now, looking back, it's 2020 hindsight, right? But I didn't know that. So I was kind of in this space like, okay, what's next? I don't know. And a friend that I met at a writers conference. So let's just do a little segue. I mean, the benefits of going to writers conferences. I met this person like years before that, just a couple different times, but we really hit it off. We were in line behind each other for a pizza supper thing. And so, we had interacted off and on throughout the years. And then she calls me up and it's like, um, there's a group of us here in Minnesota. We're trying to do this collaboration kind of thing. Are you interested? And again, I said yes, without any hesitation. Yes, really not knowing what I was getting myself into. And that in itself has been such a growing process. But we started out, we came up with a name. It's the Mosaic Collection, with the idea that we would each put out a book a year and in indie. And I thought this is a good way for me to learn how to do indie publishing, because two of the main people in that group were doing indie publishing. So I did. I went through the thing, and when it was my turn, I had my book out there, and it was so exciting. But in between time, Annie started offering me multiple contracts. And so that book came out, I think, in like 2019. And I thought I'd be doing an indie book every year. And then it turned out not to be that way. What did happen, though, was that we decided as a group to start doing anthologies, 2 anthologies a year, one in the summer, one at Christmas. And again, this was the Mosaic Collection itself has been a work in progress. I mean, just starting out with this small group of women, and now we're an LLC. We just became an LLC this year. I mean, it has just been a fabulous growth. And I'm so thankful that I said yes when they first asked me
Can
to
we
join.
can we brag for a second? Because how many times was a book or author from the Mosaic Collection on stage at the SELA Awards this year for Blue Ridge?
Oh, wow. Well, both of our anthologies was it 2023? Would that have been right?
Mhm.
That's both of our anthologies made it into the finalists under the anthology category. And we won first and second place. And then another of our authors is actually one of her books under the Mosaic Collection has been, I think, I may get this mixed up, but a Christie Award winner, maybe a Carol Award winner, a SELA Award winner, I think something else she did. Several of our members in the Mosaic Collection, our authors, are Canadian authors. They're winning awards there. Another one is in England. She just recently won an award. I don't remember what it is enough to say the Holt Medallion, maybe. So I mean, so yes, our group is pretty good. So anyway, so then I started writing short stories, because what we decided was, if you're not going to be able to put out a book, and I was not able to put out a book because I'd committed myself to all these contracts, where you have to write a short story for the at least one short story to be in the anthology, stay active in the group. And that has been just the most fun thing for me, because that is my opportunity to write what I want to write. And my short stories are not typical short stories at all. I mean, I may have mentioned this on here when I've been a guest before on Serious Writer. You may have heard me talk about on Writer's Chat, if you follow Writer's Chat. One of the stories I wrote has no text. It's all images. Now, there may be text in the images, but it's like, how do you tell a story using only images? It's called Paper Trail. And I do that. And it was so fun. So to be able to be creative that way is just a joy. But anyway, now I have gone through all the contracts with Annie's and Guideposts that I have. So once again, I am contractless and not knowing, and at this juncture. And so I am going to be putting out my second indie book. And I do have an indie novella though too, so I don't want to totally forget about that, which was done in collaboration with another group of authors several years ago. But It's my second novel that I'll be putting out, and I'm so excited about it. It comes out in September, and God has just given me so much peace where, I started out saying, God, I have no contracts. I need a contract, to God, I know you're in control, but this is really hard for me to, not know where I'm going to go, to now it's just like, okay, I don't know how this indie thing is going to work out, but we're just going to take it a step at a time and see. Because of course the issue is income. When I have Andy's contracts, I had steady income. Now I don't. But it's like it's okay because God always provides. He always takes care of me. And I know there are things going on behind the scenes that I don't know about yet. So I trust that.
Let's talk about how a lot of people will start with indie and then they try to go into traditional. It's the way that I see it a lot, as on the agenting side, because they've published before and now they're coming in looking for the traditional side of publishing. You kind of did it the other way. You started
Yeah.
with traditional and then moved into indie. Can you just briefly, and then whatever you feel like you're allowed to say, but working with your agent, how did you decide, first of all, which projects would be indie? And then obviously you have an agent who's okay with you doing indie projects.
Yeah.
But what were the conversations, or what were the thoughts that you had about, is this going to affect my sales numbers for future projects if this indie project doesn't do what a traditional publisher could bring to the table? So just kind of, can you just kind of share what your, maybe the concerns that you had going from traditional to indie, if there were any, and then how, like maybe a couple of tips for writers who are thinking about whichever way they're deciding to go, how to do that?
That's a good question. And I will say, like, I love my agent. We have a great relationship, and it's been fun because now I'm here in Virginia with Bethany. My agent lives in Virginia. We've gotten to get together for lunch a couple times, so that's been really fun. Um, you know, Back in like 2019, I won't say she wasn't unhappy about me doing an indie project, but she would have preferred me doing something that she could get out there and sell. But as time has gone on and indie has just become more of a thing, it's okay, and more agents are accepting that this is just the way it is, um, and allowing authors that opportunity to do that. Now it's still in my contract. Like, I kind of need to, I mean, our contract was signed a long time ago, and it says, a project needs to go to her first before doing something else. And I think she's told me verbally not to worry about that so much anymore. But I did have a project, and it's actually the first novel I ever wrote and polished and did all of that with, is the novel. So that was back like in what, Bethany, 2009 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the book I'm finally putting out in September. So it
This is
has
your
just
heart
been
book.
oh, it is.
It's a hard book.
I love the story.
Okay. So 40 novels later, 40 books later, because I know some of them are novellas. Let's just talk about this
Yeah.
for a second. This is the book that started it all. This was the NaNoWriMo project. This is the book of your heart. And now here we are, 15 years
Oh,
later,
long time later.
40 published books, well, some to be released. And now it's
Now
time for this
I
book.
get to put this book out. So, and it was, I mean, when I took those opening pages to the Florida Christian Writers Conference in 2009, so I think I did it as a NaNoWriMo in 2008. I won Writer of the Year because of that at the conference, and I got Novel of the Year. And a editor wanted to see it, and I said, well, it's not completely done. So, he gave me time to do it. And he liked it a lot. He said 5 years. So remember, this is 2009. And he says to me, 5 years ago, I could have just taken this and run with it. But now we have to go through a committee. And one other person on the committee didn't like the story. I didn't something about the story. So, I didn't really know why, but he and I talked about it. And so that was the book I kind of put away. Later, I've had it professionally edited a few years ago. And then still, just because I was busy with other projects, put it away. And so Tamala is my agent, Tamala Hancock Murray, and she and I have talked about it. And we had just recently, within the last year, talked about her doing it. And I was supposed to write a proposal for it. But then these guidebooks contracts came up. So again, it gets pushed to the back. But I just knew it wouldn't sell. And I'll tell you why I knew it wouldn't sell. Okay. In a historical romance in today's market, you have the hero's point of view and the heroine's point of view, and they're 50-50. in my story, it's the heroine's point of view only. And the hero is actually kind of a shadowy figure, which I purposely wrote that way. You never really get to know him, and there's a reason for that. It is not a happily ever after story necessarily. And it's just different. And I just didn't think any publisher would buy it. I just didn't think it. They may love the writing, but they're not going to publish it. So the first time we went to lunch a few weeks ago, we were talking, and I said, I think I just want to take Sparrow back. I call it's not, that's not the title, but that's what I call it, Sparrow Back. It's a World War II story. And I want to self-publish it. I want to indie publish it. In exchange for that, though, here are 3 story ideas. You choose the one you want me to give you a proposal for. So we sort of made a deal. And so I'm working on a proposal for her for that, while doing one more read through of this manuscript in preparation of indie publishing it in September, and just praying my little heart out for it because I love it so much.
I wonder if you will have to change the genre though as you publish it, because it's not going to fit under the romance categories on Amazon.
It's not, and it's not, I'm not putting it as a romance, I'm putting it as a strict historical. There is some framing with it as well. So there again, you actually have 2 point of view characters, but it's the same person. She just has a different name in the 1990s than she had in the 1940s, but it's not a timeline story either, because there again, those are 2 in that genre. You have a time slip story, I guess is what they call it now. Usually those are kind of 50-50 as well. And that's not the case with this story either. So it doesn't really fit. So I'm just calling it a historical and mainly focusing on the 1940s aspect of it. And that's what I'll do in the marketing. And I just hope people will love it. But that's what indie gives you the opportunity to do. And it may fall flat on its face. And if it does, it doesn't matter. I've got stories to tell, and I will be writing, and I've got another Nano project. It's actually the sequel to Where Treasure Hides, my debut novel. I'm going to be doing it unless something else comes up to put it on a back burner. It'll be coming out in March. So I've got a plan. Let's say that I've got an indie plan. Sales numbers, you know what? It's like that. I can't control that. I can only control that as far as what marketing I can do. And Bethany knows I'm not the best at marketing, and she's my little marketing guru and always telling me stuff. And I'm going, yeah. And then, don't do it. But I've gone to the Novel Marketing Writers Conference. We've had talks. I've got a plan. I'm going to do hopefully good marketing for this book. But, the sales results are always are out of your hands. There's only so much you can do. You can do all the marketing in the world and not have sales. You can do no marketing, and sometimes the book just, rises to the top. So you pray, you do what you can, you do your work, you write the best story you can do. And then I'm just going to, like I said, I'm just going to keep writing the stories I want to write, and, still praying for, contracts to come back my way too. So just kind of walk that double road for a while and just see what happens,
Well, and I just love the patience of 40 books later. This is now the book. So, like, you kind of have a trump card when someone's like, well, it's been a year. Like, really? let's talk about the timeline. But no, I think it's great. And that's such a good, again, your segues are amazing, because our third best practice for is it time to pivot is that, first of all, you have to be open to a different genre. You have to be open to maybe a different publishing type. And then the third thing is you have to be open to the marketing. And we literally have in our text thread, when we were brainstorming this, in parentheses, it says, be open to marketing because the wait can be long. And I think you're seeing that. But if you had indie published this book 10 years ago, you wouldn't know nearly what you know now about the market or marketing you would have to do. So I think you've got a really good position here too. And I'm going to plug for the podcast episode with Vincent Davis II, who is the genius of Amazon ads and utilizing the Amazon algorithm to market his books. One of the things he said that I still think about is that Amazon doesn't care about your platform. And so for any writer out there who is just super stressed about the platform side and decides to go with an indie project, Amazon doesn't care about the platform. It cares about the algorithm. And so his time with us was amazing. And he will be with us in September for a full day doing a workshop and also taking one-on-one appointments for anybody who wants to go in there and talk to him very specifically about their own books, about how to do that. And he sold over 100,000 copies of his series, which is a very niche historical Roman Empire type series. So I can't stop thinking about that. So there's so much information that you're going to be able to take from that as you're doing this too. So let's talk about marketing in the time we have left. If you've got questions, those of you who are here with us live, throw them into the chat. And again, we'll have some time after this is over to talk about that. Marketing, be open to marketing. So I think this also is being open to the market, because the market dictates so many of these decisions. And yet you're really guessing, you're really having to pay attention to the book deals that are happening now versus what's come out on the shelves, because that can be a year to 2 years after the book deal was actually made. And then, are you writing something that is evergreen, something that is timely, something that can, evergreen means it doesn't matter when it's published, it's always going to be a relevant type of book. So those can be really good. And like right now in the picture book space, SEL is it's the feelings, social, I always say, I want to say social emotional learning. There's lots of L's in there, but they're kind of full on that. A lot of editors are full there. They're not asking for it. They're specifically in conversations that I'm having with them saying, don't send me any of these. Well, I have half of my clients who write SEL. So that's another reason we're having to pivot, is because this isn't going to get picked up right now, but the market will turn. We know it's cyclical. And so it's like, can we hold off on these stories for now? What they're looking for is humor, fun, character-driven series and picture books. And that's what I need to give them as an agent. And so being aware and paying attention to some amazing writing podcasts. I'm not saying ours is nowhere near the best. There's some really, really great ones out there, but paying attention to the people in the industry who are telling you, hey, this is what the editors are saying. This is where the market's going. And then being able to say, okay, I can quickly pivot there, or I can do this now to then set me up for when the market's going to change. Because I have all of my authors are debut in the picture book space. If we can get a funny character-driven series book out and it does well, then when SEL's time comes back, they already have a book out. They're hopefully already doing well. They're no longer a debut author, and maybe that SEL book that I signed them with is what will then become maybe book 2 or book 3. You just don't know what book is going to be the book that's going to launch your career. And so I think you have to be open to the marketing. So I'm going to pass this to you, because I don't really love doing the marketing, but I love marketing strategy. So I don't want to just with marketing strategy, but when you have to pivot, so coming back to, is it time to pivot?
Yeah.
How do you pivot in the marketing?
Well, I think you really need to know what your strengths are, and realize you don't have to do it all. Excuse me. And you can't do it all. So I know that my audience is on Facebook. It's an older demographic. I know that's where they are, and I need to be more active there. I'm a little bit active there, but not as much as I should be. And Instagram. So those are going to be the 2 places that, that I'm focusing on. I really liked what Vincent had to say, but I also know that to make that successful, excuse me a minute, you need to, lots of times it's best to have a series, and I don't have a series. So I'm thinking ahead to that. So one reason I'm putting Sparrow out in September is because I really had it written already. It's like, I wanted to get a book out this year. It was done. It was really scary for me to put it out again, because it means so much to me, and I want it to be received well. But all I have to do is this last round of edits, one more round of edits, and then, it's pretty much ready to go. And the same with the one I'm putting out in March. It's the NaNoWriMo project. It's not great. In fact, it's a horrible draft, but I've got something to work with that I can, rewrite and revise and get into shapes. But then so those are why those 2 are coming out. But my future plan, I'm thinking very much into the future, is to concentrate on series, and as far as indie goes, and then I will work in whatever contracts I get as I can. I'm going to mute a minute and cough.
Okay. I think before you come back in, I think I'm going to say, I think an important tip for being able to pivot in the marketing is to like what you said with what your strengths are. There's really only three kinds of content that you can provide. It's written, it's audio, or it's a video. And like with this podcast, we're doing the video at the same time we're recording the audio. And if I wanted to, I could provide a transcript and then create a blog post out of that. And then you have the written content. So, and again, we talked about like different kinds of new media versus traditional media. And a radio is audio, a podcast is audio. It's same for TV and video and YouTube. The medium is the same in essence. It's just the way you're disseminating the information is different. So I think as writers, obviously the written portion is the strength, but I think you have to marry it to something else, video, really. But you don't have to have your face on there. But again, that's a whole different conversation. But
it is, yeah.
You got to practice video, audio, and written, because the platforms are always going to change. They're always getting updated. And so you have to pivot quickly then to the next one. But if you're strong in, okay, I learned how to be on camera, or I learned how to take faceless video and build an audience with it, doesn't matter what the platform is, you'll just have to learn that platform because you already know how to create the content your audience wants. Back to you.
Well, that's really a good way to think of it. And I sort of forget to think about it that way too, that it all boils down to that. And then you go out to your platform. So, and of course, like there's blogging, and, if you're nonfiction, you probably do need to be blogging. If you're fiction, I mean, I've blogged and I've not blogged, and I'm not blogging now. I blog, I'm a contributor to a blog. So that's my blogging piece, that focuses on historical events. Oh, I had a thought, and again, it just kind of like, they scamper away. Another thing I was going to talk about just briefly though is finding that kind of niche-y kind of thing. And this is something that I've just been seeing it and hearing it a little bit, that like an author who has been indie publishing for a while, but now because of this whole thing about series and how that can there are certain advertising strategies and marketing strategies you can use if you have a series, have the first book free or at a discounted price or on sale, and readers will often jump then to the next book. So that's where you're making the money then, is on the sales of books 2, 3, whatever, and how important that is. And that's what I've got my eye on doing eventually. But she had 4 books that all took place in Montana. Now, other than that, they had nothing to do with each other. They were the same genre, but that's it. She redid the covers. She put them all under a Montana banner, and now they're a series. So it's like being able to, that's a great way of pivoting in a marketing sense and seeing what people are liking now, what the strategies are, and taking these 4 different books, but putting them together. And that's sort of what I'm focusing on too. So as you all know, because I've talked about it so much during the session, I am writing historicals right now. But when I get to these series things, they're going to be they're going to be maybe different genres, even to some extent. I've got an idea for one that would be contemporary romance, one that's more romantic suspense, lighthearted romantic suspense, and even a historical suspense. But guess what? They're all going to be set in Florida. I was not born in Florida, but I lived 20 years in Florida, moved away, came back for a while, moved away, and I'm back living in Florida now. And I love that state. I love its history. I know it in a sense, and that's where I'm going to have that tie-in, that all these books that I indie publish, almost all of them, I will say, and maybe not 100%, but most of them will be set in Florida so that it gives that continuity and they can all go together, even if they're in different genres. So that's like a long-term plan. And I mean, it's going to be years before I'm there with it. But what else do I have to do? Except write.
Such a smart way to think about marketing is about putting it, what's the tie-in here? How can I put these things together that makes sense for the reader and that they're still going to enjoy it and like it? And it's really good. I think we've talked about picture books, we've talked about fiction. I want to pull in the nonfiction audience here because that's my background, is nonfiction publishing or writing. And I think the pivots that I see coming again from the agent's perspective with my nonfiction clients, it's pivoting from, is this a trade book? Is this a devotional? is, well, in the Christian market anyway. Could it, maybe it's not working right now because of platform. And so is this still something that needs to be out there? Does it fit the devotional space, where sometimes you don't need as much platform for the devotional as you would a trade book? And so like, can we take it and try it this way? And so, you know, my nonfiction authors spend a lot of time on their own, like writing or reworking proposals or that kind of thing before I'm sending it out, because there's so much pivoting that's happening for them in the pre-time. So, you know, it's very interesting to watch the progression for my nonfiction authors as they're thinking about not only what type of book, but you have to reformat it completely if you're going from a trade book to a devotional, and how many days of that devotional is it going to be? And now, can I do 365 of this because of, oh, there's a publisher that wants this? Can I actually do that? And so it's really, I think the lesson here is digging into the craft, whether it's fiction or picture books or nonfiction. If you really understand the craft of it, it's much easier than to pivot within the genres, because you understand the craft of fiction, but then you have to learn the next sub part of that, like going from romance to historical. It's two different things. Like you were saying, like in romance, HEA, happily ever after, or happy for now. I've seen that too. HFN would be what they say. There has to be that happy ending, or it doesn't count for the romance. For that romance reader, they're looking for those specific things within the genre. Nonfiction has its own craft elements. Picture books have their own craft elements too. And so just to wrap up here, and then we'll go to private Q&A with our patrons. Thinking about the industry, it's full of pivots, whether we want them or not. And so our best practices from a writer and agent perspective are be open to different genres, be open to different publishing opportunities, and also be open to different types of marketing, because the wait can be long. So with that,
I do, because my little thought that went scampering away scampered back again. So newsletters that we didn't even talk, and that is so important. So marketing, newsletters, get your newsletter set up regular basis, even if it's only one subscriber to begin with, doesn't matter. That is so important, because that will be a big part of my indie marketing plan, newsletters.
And I will just say, as my final thought, you have a very successful newsletter. It gets lots of opens, and you get a lot of replies from the people who read your newsletter, which those are wins to me. I think no matter how big a newsletter is, what's the open rate, and then what's the response rate? I mean, yours is very, very high. And so she'll be teaching, my mom, Johnny, she will also be teaching a class on newsletters at our intensive in North Carolina. And because we keep it super tiny, I mean, we're not even capping. Like, it doesn't matter if there's 5 people there. It doesn't matter to Kyle. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to any of our faculty. We're like, that means that those people get extra attention. And that's why we do this. I don't care how small it is. So we're very excited about that intensive. You'll be there. Vincent will be there. Eva Marie Everson is going to be there. I'm teaching, and so is Kyle, and taking appointments, so that we can really help everybody. So thanks for being here with us on this podcast episode, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you.